Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is Zuck Family Memories, All-Time Greatest Hits. This was originally published as Zuck Family Memories Collection, or ZFMC number 51, published on August 10th, 1997, from Manila, Philippines. And it was the 10-year anniversary of the ZFMC, going back to August 10th, 1987, when ZFMC 1 was produced. So in today's presentation, we'll have the 50 ZFMCs and a short excerpt from each one, starting with ZFMC number 1. Tom Zuck's U.S. Civil War Diary, Part 1, 1862. September 5th, 1862. Great God, how long? How long wilt thou permit this state of things to continue? I have witnessed more suffering and human misery within the last 4 days than in all the preceding portion of my life. And my constant prayer is, if I am permitted to return home in the event of peace, that I will try and feel satisfied and happy and thankful that our country is no longer cursed with war. ZFMC number 2, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 1, 1943. March 10th, 1943. The Army doctor said my heart was leaking in all valves. I'll have to cut down on gym and try to get more sleep. Sunday, April 25th, 1943. I am very ashamed of myself for not going to church this morning. I studied math instead. ZFMC number 3, Aunt Nettie Zuck's French Canada Vacation Diary, July 25th, 1905, Quebec, Canada. Coming out of our hotel, we noticed a hearse, a most elaborate one, and carriages standing in front of the basilica. A funeral. We'll go in. So in we went. CFMC 4, John S. Ray's Europe Vacation Diary, 1961. October 8th, 1961. The Irish cooking is no good. Everything is quite bland, and everything tastes the same. October 20th, 1961, Paris, France. We set out to have a look at the fabled city. The place has loads of atmosphere, lots of people running around. The girls put lots of goop on their faces and have some wild hairdos. At the Lido, the food was good, prices very high, and the girls had no shirts. ZFMC 5, Mark and Pamela and Friends, Creative Writing from 1971. Mark Ray. Pathos, evolving to a tragic flawlessness. Soul stature stooped. This is modern man. While intact in the residue of an eon's churning, love now struggles not to fall through the omnipotent sieve. And Pamela Ruth Ray. Eclipsed. Light green grass powders the snow in a circle of needles gone dry. The coils of boughs wind slowly up, arching away to the sky. The trunk shoots up immediately, straight and solid and strong. The snow only accents, the sleet only vibrates, the wind only hears its own song. Yet young slender saplings that grow at its base choke from the richness in soil. They break in their arching, snap in their strength, convulsive caprice of snow, sleet, and wind. ZFMC 6, Tom Zuck's U.S. Civil War Diary, Part 2, 1863. January 1st, 1863. This is New Year's Day, but a lonesome day it is for very many of us poor fellows who are lying here in these Mississippi swamps and marshes, inhaling the miasma and drinking the water that is odorous with poisonous fumes, and rank with impurities that kill more certainly than the rebel soldiers. One word of resentment from us is met with bitter denunciation and dreaded threatenings from the officers. ZFMC number 7, Helen Lacey's Memories and Hawaii Vacation Diary, July 1966. Those were hard years. Mama's health finally gave out and she didn't recover for several years. I was the oldest at home, and the responsibility was taken by me, teaching in the day and taking care of Mother at night. Nothing seemed ever the same again. That's regarding the 1920s. Hawaii, 1966. A luau at Hawaii Village was a great disappointment. Mobs of people, weak drinks in paper cups. We arrived back in San Diego, California, bone-weary and hungry at 10:30 p.m. Stopped long enough to get to eat the best hamburger ever tasted. ZFMC 8, Doran Eugene Ray's Memories of Credit and Collections, December 1973. I can't resist telling you a story about this patrolman. A good, honest cop, but not too good on paperwork. One Saturday night he found a drunk in the gutter on North Prospect Street in Marion, Ohio. Since he knew he had to make a written report as to where he found this drunk, and since he couldn't spell Prospect, he dragged him to Oak Street, a matter of 1 block, and then made out his report, spelling Oak, O-K-E. CFMC number 9, Tom Zuck's Civil War Diary, Part 3, 1863. January 13th, 1863, Arkansas Post. The rebel dead still remain unburied. Some of the boys recognize old friends and schoolmates among them, and it is said that some of our soldiers even found brothers among the dead. February 4th, 1863. I wrote to Anna today again, but I can't imagine why I don't get any letters from home. It is getting to be a terrible suspense to have to wait so long a time. It is nearly a month since I have had a scratch of a pen from Ohio or any other place. February 11th. O God, may each recurring month and day and hour make me sensible of my dependence on Thee, the giver of all good and perfect gifts. CFMC 10, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 2. November 11th, 1943. We were building fires with methane generated by the boys this evening. December 17th, 1943. Freddie Arts went over the 100 Years' War this morning in about 10 minutes. What a man. December 24th. Got 16 hours sleep today. Went to Ginny's about 9 and got back about 3 a.m. We had a super terrific Schwunz Fest. Better watch myself. January 28th, 1944. Got some grapefruit shells for boobs for tomorrow night. January 29th. The Men's Glee Club concert went off fine this evening. In our girl act, one of my grapefruits fell out on the floor. Everyone about had hysterics. ZFMC 11, Creative Writing of Helen Lacey and Her Flock, Poetry. John Frederick Lacey. A stag was standing alone. A stagnant pond nearby, vital, unfulfilled. A doe there came. His instincts flowed, his mind congealed. Two look, then lock tight together. And The Northwest Coast by Greg Lacey, age 10. The Northwest Coast has lots of hills and rocks, and on the coastlines, lots of rocks. I wish I could go to the Northwest Coast, and then to my friends, I really could boast. ZFMC 12, Gertrude Zuck Ray's Memories of Growing Up in Marion, Ohio. The turning point in Papa's life came during an evangelical meeting in the Methodist Church in Marion. He had gone to that meeting a young adult, nervous and unsettled. His life was in turmoil. Admitting this and committing himself to the forgiveness and care of Jesus Christ and relying on Him for guidance, our father became a changed man, happy, outgoing, and forgiving. Father had a good voice, and I loved to hear him join the singing and felt happy and secure holding his hand in church. Grandmother Hecker had come from Germany when she was a small child and had married young to a Mr. Strausser. They had one son, and one day her husband walked away and never returned. Her second husband was much older. She liked good clothes, good beer, and good visiting. I got to see Theodore Roosevelt when his train stopped in Marion in 1912. It was a thrill to see the great man who had done so much for preserving the natural beauty of our country. In the fall of 1918, my sister Helen and I entered Oberlin Conservatory, and I was on top of the world. The heart of Oberlin was Finney Chapel. In the summer of 1921, Helen and I went to Yellowstone Park to work. We had given President Warren Harding for reference. I met Doran Ray at Yellowstone. We were both 22 years old and were in a setting of great natural wonder and beauty. That summer was the turning point of my life. I had met my true love. We were married 2 summers later on June 9th, 1923, in Prospect Methodist Church in Marion, Ohio. The greatest step forward in leading a happy and successful life is through spiritual experience. It is deeper and more profound than falling in love. Something happens within you. You are filled with peace, warmth, and beauty. Leo Tolstoy described it. To know God is to live. ZFMC 13, Tom Zuck's Civil War Diary, Part 4, March 3, 1863. General Ulysses S. Grant, in company with General Sherman, passed us on the levee as we were returning this evening. He is not a remarkable-looking man by any means, of medium height, rather heavy-set, and dresses plainly. May 12, 1863. Fine sunny morning. Everything seems to rejoice in the beautiful sunlight. Even the birds sing as if they fully appreciated the goodness of the Creator in giving us such blessings. CFMC 14, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 3, April 15, 1944. Duffy and I went to the Lit Society's formal at the inn this evening. She wore a strapless evening gown and looked really super terrific. We had a big schwunz afterwards out in the Gables garage in the back of the Dudley's car. Wow, that kid can really pitch it. Went down to Timmy's afterwards with the lads. May 24th, 1944. Bruce Partridge and I went over and painted General Shirtliff after I got home. We only had our jocks on. ZFMC 15, Terry Freilich's diary of his 1985 Himalayan trek with his father Harold, Part 1. April 25th, 1985, Nepal. Dad and I both realized more clearly the importance of taking one step, one moment at a time, bringing your attention fully to the present, without anticipation of what lay ahead. ZFMC 16, Dale and Lenore Hughes, 1966 South Pacific Adventure, February 12, 1966. The Tahitians take it easy in the morning, siesta in the afternoon, and rest at night. March 17th, New Guinea. You wouldn't believe that people still live on our earth wearing no clothes, sticks stuck through holes in their noses, tattooed all over the place, strange feather concoctions in their hair, and smelling to high heaven. April 3rd, Honolulu, Hawaii. This whole trip has been the best one we have ever had, really tremendous. It is a pleasure to travel with Dale. ZFMC 17, Tom Zuck's Union Soldier Diary, Part 4, June 1st, 1863, the Siege of Vicksburg, Mississippi. Last night they made another vain attempt to disengage themselves from the grasp of the fearful army that is anaconda-like enclosing them within its deadly folds. June 16th, I have made 2 maps today. One of them was sent immediately to General Grant, and the other remains in the desk. July 4th. This morning, the long-wished-for surrender has been announced. At 10 o'clock a.m., all of the rebel works and forces were formally surrendered to General Grant. That's the Siege of Vicksburg. August 12th. I arrived in Marion, Ohio at 6 o'clock this morning, where I found the folks waiting my arrival. Once more, I enjoy the society of wife and child, and the kind hospitalities of my father's house. ZFMC 18, John S. Ray's hitchhiking trip to California, the summer of 1944. June 11th, 1944. As I think about it, this is very probably the most delightfully dissipated weekend I've ever spent. I'm dead. June 22. This evening after I got back from Gables, Bruce, Tony, and I went up to ring the chapel bell. The rope broke after we'd rung it only once. Damn it all. Rather disgusted, we went down and dumped an armload of firewood on Dean Bosworth's front porch. June 30th, on the road to California. This morning I left the pipe that Duffy gave me in someone's car. That really made me feel sad. July 6th, we hitchhiked out to Great Salt Lake in Salt Lake City, Utah, and took a swim. This was a unique experience. You just can't sink in the stuff. It's tough apples if you get any of it in your eyes. It's really salty. July 12th, Los Angeles, California. To finish things off, Tommy Zuck took us to a small place which had the most deliciously different food I've ever tasted. Toasted French bread, buttered halves of baked potatoes, and a delicious hamburger with onions. CFMC 19, Terry Fralick's diary of his 1985 adventure with his father Harold, Part 2. May 14th, 1985, Kathmandu, Nepal. I listened intently to Sherry, reliving my own emotions about the horror and tragedy of the Vietnam War, watching Faith's long, graceful body lying on the bed in front of me, and feeling like I was moving in and out of a dream. May 21st, Jaipur, India. After losing his journal, quote, as I sat alone in the room, though, I couldn't avoid for long what I know. It's so often the same lesson, and sometimes it's simply taught in dramatic ways. The present is where my life is, and an attempt to carry the past, to be immersed in anything but this moment, is only a distraction, and ultimately an illusion. May 23rd. As the bus pulled away, my eyes watered, and I felt full with the profound love I feel for Dad. ZFMC 20, Dale and Lenore Hughes' 1968 trip around the world. April 5th, 1968, Saigon, South Vietnam. We talked to many of our boys at the airport. All know just when their tour of duty is over. All were anxious to go home. ZFMC 21, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 5. December 23rd, 1944. After we had dropped off our dates, we took Harold over by McKinley Park and hauled out the quart of whiskey I had gotten from Uncle John Lacey earlier in the evening. The three of us knocked it off in about half an hour, Harold getting by far the largest part. I was in no shape to drive, so Bob Slaughter drove us home. Harold and I were pretty high, dead drunk, you might say. Yes, sir, a real bachelor's party. Well, when we got out of the hot car at Aunt Mary's, Harold fell out. We helped him into the house, and he threw up all over the living room walls. My, that boy was sick. Then we took him out to the kitchen sink. For about half an hour, I held him with one arm and washed the mess off his arms and face with the other. Then I started to feel heavy. I finally couldn't stay vertical anymore, so I lay down on the kitchen floor about an hour with the dog licking my face. I was just too heavy to move an inch. Harold was left hanging over the sink. Bob Slaughter carried on for about an hour alone. I finally vomited violently and pried myself off the floor. We got Harold set on the living room floor about 6 o'clock and finally got into bed upstairs. Oh me, what an evening. December 24th. Aunt Mary took care of Harold from 6 on this morning. It seems he needed quite a bit of attention. Bob and I finally got up about noon. Harold was lying in sort of a coma with his mouth hanging open. Harold finally got rid of the last bit of trouble about 6:30 this evening, just in time to get to the wedding. He felt 1,000% better. The ceremony went off very nicely after all, and I think Harold will be able to remember it. ZFMC 22, Tom Zuck's Civil War Diary, Part 6, September 20th, 1864, Cairo, Illinois. Verily, this Cairo is a fine place to live in if a person is ambitious to make himself known by having his throat cut. December 12th, muddy. CFMC 23, Tom Zuck's Miscellaneous Writings and the Grief of Anna Zuck, 1870. Anna Zuck, 1870. Mama, why don't Papa come home tonight? Lisped little Eddie, as the sad, widowed mother lifted him from the gateway, where for an hour he had been watching for the familiar face of that doting parent. In the darkened chamber above which you are carried to sleep so innocently, lies the form of that loved one for whom you have been crying in the cold embrace of death. CFMC 24, Richard Ray's Furniture Wood Digest Editorials, 1984 to 1988. September 1985, quote, people need to be recognized. They need to be spoken to. They need to be included. And then they need to know that someone cares about them. They need to feel a part of things and that what they are doing is important. CFMC 25, John S. Ray's Episcopal Church Court Women's Priest Case, 1974 to 1976. April 9th, 1976 newspaper article, quote, "With Pam's death, we became aware of how short life is. We decided that if there was anything worth doing for others, the time to do it was now." Oberlin Alumni Magazine, September-October 1976. "Over the years, I have tried many difficult cases in many courts. None, however, has been more challenging or called for more creative input than the Peter Beebe case. My wife and I worked together on this case from the beginning. Our whole family was caught up in the spirit. The end result for Mr. Beebe was that he was cleared of all charges. Our main hope is that somehow through all of this, the will of our Lord is being done." CFMC 26, John S. Ray recalls his growing up years in Marion, Ohio in 1986. "I do hope that people will all have an abiding faith in the good Lord, whether they're living now or a million years from now. That's where everything seems to start, and that's where the strength is drawn from to deal with whatever problems you have in whatever time you live." CFMC 27, Hecker Family History from 1789 Germany to 1989. Paul Midlam, 1975, quote, "Probably one of the reasons Jacob Sr. had taken his 3 sons to America was because his first son Christopher had left Germany at age 17 and had already been successful in western United States. It was reported that he had come into possession of a gold mine. During the Mexican War, he went into the service, was taken prisoner, and escaped. The family never heard from him again. It is nice to think that somewhere there is a group of relatives sitting on a gold mine, waiting to cut us in on the deal." CFMC 28, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 6. February 15th, 1945. "The folks all came over this evening, and we went to the Yehudi Menuhin concert. It was terrific. Yehudi isn't nearly so tall as I thought, but he can really play the fiddle." April 12th, 1945. "President Roosevelt died this morning at 3:35 of a cerebral hemorrhage. His death has stunned the entire world. I only hope that Harry Truman will be a big enough man to carry on." CFMC 29, Lenore Zuck Hughes discusses her memories of the Zuck family in August 1989. "Gertrude always went out with the boys and played baseball. She would be the one Mama'd have to call at night. Gertrude and Doran lived in the second house from Mama's. I'd go over there after school, and if I had any problems, I'd lay them on Gertrude." CFMC 30, the Civil War Pension Records of Thomas F. Zuck, 1880 to 1892. Peter J. Ray, 1989, quote, "Why were Anna's pension requests denied? Was she a victim of Grover Cleveland's fight against corruption in the pension department? Tom Zuck's death was clearly related to his military service. He got sick from bad drinking water while serving on the Mississippi River. The loss of Tom Zuck was tragic for his wife and 3 children. Nothing could have changed that. However, his family should have received government support after his death. He had given his life for his country. It was the least his country could have done in return." Lakeside Centennial Reunion Memories Book, Joan Ray editor, August 19, 1999. Young John Lacey. "After the pillow fight, I went over to the attic window and looked out towards the dock and the soft yellow light that lit the way for late-night strollers. The Lakeside Carillon told the time, and I thought it the most soothing music I'd ever heard. It had been a glorious day, filled with activities with loved ones, and the bells of Lakeside were a perfect ending. I'll never forget that exact moment." CFMC 31, Harold Freilich discusses his Zuck family memories, August 30th, 1989. "Gertrude accepted what was happening. A lot of what was happening she couldn't do anything about, but she accepted it with love. To me, that's the art of being a hero. Just because your brothers or sisters do things you don't approve of, that shouldn't deteriorate your love for them." CFMC 32, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 7. And he's in Alaska. June 3rd, 1945. "It seems that last evening's imbibing of both beer and wine caused me to regurgitate in my sleep last night. Spent quite a while bleaching the sheets and pillowcase and deodorizing the rest of the room." CFMC 33, Patricia A. Ray recalls her growing up years in 1990 in Switzerland. "Dad has a big heart. He's a good listener. He's very positive about life, seems to reflect on his life, and reflect on how he can be helpful to his children. He's always really happy to see me. He makes me feel very wanted. He's a good dad. Peter and I were the two little kids. One time I spilled the milk, and Mom asked who did it, and I pointed to Peter, who couldn't talk yet. He started to cry, and I let him take the heat for it. ZFMC 34, Harold Freilich's 1941 Travel Diary of Western USA Trip, August 31st, 1941. It certainly seems swell to be at home and see everyone. Went to the show with Ann. She's fine. We saw the movie Dive Bomber. It was good. Stayed over at Ann's till about 1, then slept out in the yard with Barb and Mom. ZFMC 35, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 8, August 30th, 1945. Started spooning fish this morning and did it for 11½ hours. Spooning means scraping the coagulated blood off the spine of the fish. This work would drive a person insane in rather short order. We just lived from coffee time to coffee time. I was in Ketchikan, Alaska. CFMC 36, Peter J. Ray reflects on a variety of subjects in 1990 and 1991. Quote, I worked for Union Carbide at a battery factory in Cleveland in 1983. I ordered spare parts for the factory. Different men would come to me and say they needed an item, and I would call the supplier. I had no idea what I was doing in that job. The factory was very loud and noisy. These big factory workers scared me. It just terrified me working there. ZFMC 37, A Brief History of the Zuck Diaspora, Movement and Search. Peter J. Ray, 1991, quote, After Vicksburg, Tom was granted a 3-week furlough. Returning to Marion, Ohio, he saw his family for the first time in a year. It was a bitter thing to have to leave his wife Anna and daughter Nettie and return to the war. He had reached his breaking point. Debilitated by bad drinking water and loneliness, he stayed at the military hospital in Cairo, Illinois for 1 year. ZFMC 38, a Swiss 1990 interview with John S. Ray, plus his 1940 short story. From his short story A Flying Start, written in 1940 by John Ray at age 15, quote, Feet pounding furiously, chest heaving convulsively, hair madly disheveled, veins in his forehead standing out like cords, little Paul hurled himself into space with a Herculean effort, wondering what mysterious adventures awaited him on the moon. ZFMC 39, Mark D. Ray thoughtfully shares his memories on April 6, 1992, quote, I'm fairly reserved in many ways, mainly interested in the spiritual side of life. That's my primary interest. I always enjoyed nature, being outdoors, the fresh air, being in a natural element. I also am drawn to new ideas that work. ZFMC 40, 1986 Lakeside Reunion Jungle Volleyball. Peter, ow, 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 whack. Mark, ha ha ha, ha ha, no pain, no gain, yeah, pow. John, have to send you down to Maine, Peter, rehabilitation. Jan, gonna get you reupholstered. Peter, synaptic lapse, crash. John, synaptic lapse. Greg, right idea, wrong direction, thwack. John, it's like my golf game. Greg, 714. Peter, who's that? Steve Ireland with the San Diego Padres in 1973? Greg, hit it again, whack. Hit it again, thwap. Hit it again. Mark, it's in the dirt. Greg, we play them in the dirt. John, we're playing dirt shots. Jan, stretching the rules a bit. John S. Ray, Rule Stretchers, Inc. CFMC 41, Harold Freilich's Diary of the 1985 Nepal Adventure with his son Terry, Part 1, April 29th, 1985. This afternoon, for the first time on this trek, I felt very tense. Too much chance of falling. But the qualities you develop on an adventure hike like this are stamina, determination, and trust in the Lord that if I perform to the best of my physical abilities, He will protect me. Terry has been just wonderful to me. CFMC 42, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 9, January 18th, 1946. I told Nancy again that I loved her and wanted her to be my wife. Before doing anything definite, we decided it would be best for me to write to Ted Zuck and see what the chances would be for our children having decent health. January 27th. This evening, Nancy and I had a long talk. It seems she feels much more deeply about music than I had imagined. This feeling of hers may lead to some trouble. CFMC 43, Jim Zuck, Georgianne Zuck Cummings, Bobby Zuck, and Katie Zuck in a May 1992 interview. Georgianne Cummings. Dad, John Zuck, could always look at things positively because when he went to the nursing home, he had a positive outlook. He got me aside and he said, "Now there's one way we can do this. I enjoy beer, and I'm not going to smuggle in beer. You see, the doctor writes me a prescription for beer," which he did. I would come after school, and he'd say, "I believe it's time to go down there and tell them we need 2 of those." It was really funny. ZFMC 44, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 10, April 11th, 1946. Nancy and I got into a very interesting discussion. She seems very disturbed about music causing trouble between us. She says that every other factor is perfectly all right, but I am just simply not a musician. Well, I've known that all the while. She seems to change her mind about the situation every day or so. I hope she makes up her mind definitely one of these days. ZFMC 42, the 1992 Lakeside Family Reunion, Camaraderie and Sharing, Steve Lacey. This is the old geezer, Uncle Steve. We're having a wonderful week up here at Lakeside. You know the fellowship here. We're all such divergent families. We live across the country, but then we come back to Lakeside, and it's like one big happy gathering. But that's the Zuck memoirs, right, Peter? Which you've established and are keeping alive all these years. Don't ever let that go, Peter, because we all enjoy those so much. CFMC 46, Patricia A. Ray, MD, describes her experiences on April 26, 1992. I have felt the way many siblings feel when they lose a sibling, like I had to live up to Pam's standards, which is not possible. So I'm trying to learn to be myself and try not to be what she would have been, although it's a legacy I feel has been with me a long time. It's a real drag trying to compete with an idealized person who's gone. ZFMC 47, the creative writing of Peter J. Ray. This is a poem. The title is Autumn Visitor, 1975. The author is 15. I saw a squirrel in a tree. He ate a nut and looked at me. CFMC 48, Harold Felix Diary of the 1985 Nepal India trip with his son Terry, Part 2. May 18, 1985, Varanasi, India. We are just leaving for our trip to the Ganges River. What goes on in that river during the early mornings is unbelievable. We rode up and down along the shore of the river for about 2 miles. In that space, we watched 1,000 people in the Ganges River taking baths and washing their hair, performing various religious rites, swimming. We witnessed 2 cremations. The dead bodies were wrapped in colorful cloth and laid on wood planks. The feet were then dipped into the water. Then the entire wood plank and body were taken about 20 feet up on the bank and placed on top of a roaring fire. After the body is burned, the ashes will then be dispersed into the Ganges River. We observed 5 or 6 dead cows, the whole or partial carcasses floating in the river. 9 large vultures were perched on and ravenously pulling one of the carcasses apart and eating it. A truly unforgettable scene. ZFMC 49, John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, Part 11, August 23, 1946, Athens, Greece. Today offered the epitome in our trip experiences. We toured Athens with a guide and went over the Acropolis. That was really something. All of the buildings were even more impressive and beautiful than I thought they would be. What heat, though. We have been using cigarettes for money. The latest rumor is that the Greeks are not going to take the manure off the ship. Ouch. ZFMC 50, the letters of Gertrude Ray, Doran Ray, Helen Lacey, and Lena Hecker Zuck, 1963. January 19, 1965, letter from Gertrude Zuck Ray. Dear folks, to John and Ruth Ray, Mother is better. She has a fairly good appetite and is up and eats share some of the time. For the present, if she is comfortable, free from pain, and fairly happy, that is what we want to achieve. At age 94, the body can be a real tyrant. I've been washing on Sunday, and I'm a real heathen. Love, Mother, Gertrude Zuck Ray. So that concludes today's presentation, Zuck Family Memories All-Time Greatest Hits. Good luck to you with your efforts in family history. If this interests you, finding, preserving, and sharing old letters, diaries, and photographs, and interviewing elderly relatives while they're alive, you might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History, with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.